Hey guys, tonight we step into a place where the trees don't just whisper, they scheme. The air hangs wet and heavy. Vines seem to shift when you're not looking, and the soil beneath your boots might be more than just mud. This is Vietnam, in the thick of the war, and you're not carrying a rifle. No, your job is worse. You're a combat engineer. That means while others watch for enemies, you watch the ground, because it's out to kill you. You might think you're ready. You've seen war movies. You played the video games. But let me be honest. None of that prepares you for walking into a jungle wired like a haunted house built by people who really want you dead. No dramatic music warns you. No HUD glows red. Here, one wrong step doesn't cost you points. It takes your legs. Or your life. And the worst part, you often don't even see it coming. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're tuning in from. Drop your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing where these stories are being heard. Now, dim the lights, pull the blankets closer, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It's your first breath of Vietnamese jungle air, and already it feels like the world is sweating. The scent is thick, wet ferns, rotting wood, diesel, and that oddly metallic edge of something off. You're not sure what's worse, the heat that turns your helmet into a stovetop, or the thought that anything from a tree root to a candy wrapper might be hiding a booby trap. Welcome to Vietnam, 1969. You've just been dropped into the Mekong Delta, assigned to a combat engineer unit that doesn't even have a name cool enough for a movie. No catchy call signs, no patches that make people salute. Just a shovel, a pair of wire cutters, and a hand mirror duct taped to a stick. That's your starter pack. Oh, and the vague but real knowledge that at least 3 men from the last team who walked this route didn't come back with all their parts. You trudge through the waist-high grass, your boots sinking with each step into something halfway between mud and memory. This trail, you're told, is cleared. That's military slang for someone walked it yesterday and didn't die. It doesn't mean it's safe. It just means no one's exploded yet. The point man ahead of you raises his fist. Halt. You freeze. Not just stop, freeze. Because motion matters. Sound matters. In this part of the world, silence is a predator. You scan ahead. Nothing. Then again, that's the trick, isn't it? The VC, Viet Cong, were infamous for creating traps you couldn't see until it was far, far too late. One of the squad leaders leans toward you. You're the new sapper, right? You nod. He gives a dry, tired smile. Hope you got good knees. You soon learn why. Because the job of a combat engineer isn't standing and watching. It's crawling and checking. You're the one with the stick and mirror, lying belly down, nudging leaves aside like a paranoid archaeologist. You're not hunting treasure. You're looking for tripwires thinner than a strand of dental floss, for pressure plates hidden beneath rotting leaves, for that one suspiciously square pile of dirt that might be concealing a toe popper. Tiny mines meant not to kill, but to maim, slow, scream. Here's a comforting historical fact. U.S. combat engineers were responsible for not just building and clearing, but surviving in one of the most trap-ridden environments in military history. Over 10,000 documented types of booby traps were used by the VC, many improvised from basic household materials. Some of these were adapted from French colonial-era devices. Others were invented by farmers with a grudge and a sardine can. But it's not just the tech that messes with you. It's the patternless cruelty of it all. One trap is triggered by pressure. The next is triggered by not applying pressure. You step on a stick and nothing happens, but lift your foot off and bam. That's what historians still argue over. The psychological warfare of VC traps. Were they designed primarily to kill or to haunt? You continue on, the trail narrowing, tree trunks leaning close like eavesdroppers. There's a rustle up ahead, but it's just a monkey, maybe, or a breeze. You can't tell anymore. Your senses are on constant overdrive. The jungle has no straight lines, no edges. It's all shifting textures. Wet leaves, bark that peels like scabs, shadows that seem to breathe. Your sergeant calls a break. You drop to a crouch, sip from your canteen, and notice your hands are shaking. Not from exertion, from awareness. You don't walk here. You calculate your presence. Every step is a math problem with unknown variables and exploding consequences. And then someone in the squad jokes, because someone has to joke. Hey, you hear about the guy who used mosquito netting for tripwire. Groans. You laugh too, because it's the only currency that spins well out here. You've barely been in country for a week, and already you've learned that humor isn't a luxury, it's armor. A joke about mosquito netting? It's absurd, but also plausible. You've already seen a trap made with a bent Coke can and some fishing line. Here's a fringe fact. Some VC units used melted bicycle tires to fashion trigger mechanisms that wouldn't degrade in the monsoon rain. Engineers, like you called it, jungle rubber tech. Impressive, if you weren't the one crawling toward it. Back on your feet. The day swelters forward. Somewhere behind you, a bird cries out once, sharply. Everyone tenses. The bird call could be real, or it could be a signal. You reach a clearing, and that's when you first see one. It's beautiful almost. A lattice of branches, delicate vines looped just so. A patch of earth that looks slightly puffed up, as if the ground took a breath and hasn't exhaled yet. Your mirror confirms it. A bamboo spike pit, with a false floor made of paper-thin leaves. Enough to fool a heavy step. Enough to turn a man's leg into hamburger meat. The squad gives you space. This is your moment. You go flat to the ground, fingers probing around the trap, eyes scanning for secondary wires. Because yes, sometimes the VC booby-trapped the trap itself. Welcome to the onion of death. You peel one layer, and another waits beneath. And still, the real horror hasn't hit you. It's later, that night, when you clean your gear, that you notice it. Blood on your gloves. But not yours. Not your squad's either. Old blood. Dark, sticky. From the trap you disarmed. You realize you weren't the first one to find it. There was someone else. Days ago. Weeks. Maybe American. Maybe not. But they didn't get back up. And no one ever found them. The jungle keeps secrets. And tonight, it whispered one to you. The jungle doesn't sleep. You'd think that once the sun dips below the tangled canopy, things would quiet down. But no. If anything, the night amplifies everything. The bugs scream like they're on fire. Frogs croak with the timing of a broken metronome. And somewhere, deep beyond the trees, there's always something moving. You lie on your cot, inside a makeshift engineer base. No walls, just tarp and stakes, listening to the rain tap out slow bullets on canvas. Your boots are still damp from earlier. So are your socks. And your skin. And, somehow, your soul. You're too tired to sleep. That's a skill you haven't earned yet. But you're not the only one. Across from you, Jackson, third tour, Alabama drawl, missing 2 knuckles, sits cross-legged with a C-ration tin and a folding knife. He's carving tiny notches into the aluminum lid. One for each trap he's disarmed. You count. 37. He's 24. Want to see something weird? He asks, voice low. You nod, and he pulls a little box from his rucksack. Inside are trophies, a snap pressure plate, a rusty nail wrapped in fishing twine, a jawbone fragment, maybe pig, maybe not. He grins. The war museum of stuff that almost killed me. You joke that it'd make a nice exhibit back home, but he just shakes his head. Back home, no one would believe it. They think mine's a round, metal, military. But here, he holds up the jawbone. Sometimes they're personal. That sticks with you. The idea that someone, somewhere, chose to use a jawbone as a killing mechanism. It's not strategy. It's art. Dark, desperate art. The next day, your squad gets reassigned. North of Pleiku, near the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The intelligence brief says there's significant enemy movement. But you know what that really means. A fresh canvas for a fresh nightmare. The truck ride is a blend of engine growl and swamp stench. When you arrive, the landscape is different. Steeper hills, redder soil, thicker canopy. You can't see more than 10 feet ahead, which is exactly how the VC like it. Your job today? Sweep the area ahead of an infantry patrol. Standard. Boring. Deadly. You begin with a slow walk, metal detector in one hand, machete in the other. The detector pings constantly. So much leftover shrapnel on the ground It's basically screaming. You learn to distinguish the pings. High pitch is surface junk. Deep hum is a worry. But the real killers are the ones that don't ping at all. Fact check. Most Viet Cong traps were non-metallic. Bamboo, wood, bone, even plastic. This allowed them to bypass U.S. detection gear entirely. Engineers had to rely on pattern recognition, gut instinct, and pure luck. It's why the casualty rate for sappers was among the highest in Vietnam. An hour in, you find your first suspect, a patch of soil that doesn't match the surroundings. You go prone, dig gently with a probe, and find nothing. False alarm. Except your partner stumbles backward and yells, "Tripwire." Everything slows. You look up. Your eyes scan. There it is. Barely visible. Running between two trees like a spider's web. Your heart slams. Tripwire traps are their own twisted category. They're like mousetraps for humans, triggered by movement, tension, or release. One classic VC design used a tension bow with poison bamboo darts. Another used a grenade without a pin, held by a can of condensed milk. You touch the wire with a stick and gently follow it to its source. A rusted Qigong grenade, hidden in a tree knot, balanced on a twig. You disarm it, carefully, no sudden movements. And when it's safe, you look around. Now you see them. 3 more wires, crisscrossed, hidden in the foliage. One would have killed the point man. Another would have hit the guy behind him. The third was aimed waist-high. They call this a wedding bouquet. A bouquet of traps designed to ruin multiple lives at once. You sit back, sweat dripping, hands shaking. There's no medal for this. No fanfare. You just nod, wave the others through, and move on. Later that day, you cross a ravine using a rope bridge. Midway across, you spot something shiny in the planks. A fuse. A timed fuse. You scream for everyone to stop. They do. You examine the fuse. It's homemade, attached to a small oil drum under the bridge. You do the math. It was set to explode about now, but someone miscalculated the burn rate. Lucky for you. You neutralize it, then take a sample of the fuse and wrap it in a Ziploc. Your squad leader will hand it off to S2 Intel. Maybe they'll trace it. Maybe not. Historians still argue whether the majority of VC traps were constructed by centralized planners or made locally by guerrilla fighters using their own designs. Either way, the ingenuity is staggering and terrifying. That night, at the firebase, you eat chow beside a hole you dug to use as a makeshift latrine. Glamorous work. You think about how far you've come in just 10 days. You used to be afraid of spiders. Now you're grateful when a trap turns out to be only a nest of them. Across the fire, someone mentions the Widowmaker. You raise an eyebrow. It's a trap, they explain. A 2-stage device. First part is a fake mine, obvious and crude. The second part is a buried pressure plate nearby, designed to kill the guy who comes to disarm the first. Simple, vicious, effective. You sleep with that story lodged behind your eyelids. Next morning, you find one. The obvious. Mine sits like a cartoon prop right on the path. You crouch, skeptical. It's too perfect. You fan out. Probe. And there it is, 6 inches to the left, under a layer of leaves. A real charge. You disable it. That earns you nods from the others. But you're not celebrating. Because now you're part of the Brotherhood. The ones who think 2 steps ahead. The ones who flinch at square patches of ground. The ones who whisper to the dirt. You've seen death hide in shoe polish tins and cigarette packs. You've seen wires that lead to gas cans. You've seen what happens when someone gets cocky. So you keep your head low, your eyes scanning, your fingers light, and your humor dark. Someone tells you about a VC trap rigged with a harmonica. When the wire was tripped, it played a single, ghostly note just before it blew. You don't know if it's true, but in this place, it might as well be. You're beginning to walk differently. It's subtle at first, a softening of the heel, a careful placement of the toe. You avoid the center of paths. You hesitate at any patch of grass that looks too green, too perfect, and you've developed this little twitch. Your fingers mimic probing motions, even when you're not holding a stick. That's what disarming death traps does to you. It rewires your nervous system, turns caution into reflex. You're not paranoid. You're adapted. Today's mission? Sweep a dense segment of jungle near the Cambodian border. Intelligence says there's been activity. That word again. Vague. Hollow. Menacing. You and your squad move in a staggered formation. 8 engineers spaced like beads on a frayed necklace. The lead sapper carries the probe, while you handle the mirror. It's just a shard, really glued to a stick with chewing gum and duct tape. But it lets you peek beneath branches and foliage without sticking your face into a potential farewell party. As you wade through the underbrush, you feel the weight of every vine, every root. Some are natural, others too straight, too deliberate. That's your first lesson today. The VC used the jungle's chaos to build order, and you learn to see it, patterns within the mess. Your mirror catches something, a glint, tiny, round, unnatural. You signal a halt. On hands and knees, you crawl forward, slow as molasses. Inch by inch, you clear the area around the glint with your machete. Beneath the leaves, a cluster of wooden stakes, dipped in what looks like mud. No, you know better. It's feces, human waste, packed onto the spikes. Why? Because the wounds these traps cause aren't meant to kill instantly. They're meant to maim, to infect, to remove one man from the fight and force 2 others to carry him. A single punji pit can paralyze an entire platoon's momentum. Fact check. Feces-covered punji sticks were a hallmark of Viet Cong trap strategy. The goal was to trigger infection, tetanus, gangrene, or sepsis, often leading to amputations or slow, painful deaths. American troops nicknamed them S***T sticks. You mark the trap, disarm it by cutting the stakes at the base, and signal for medical inspection. The hole is deep, 5 feet, just wide enough to swallow a man's leg and snap it like sugar cane. That's when you realize how quiet it's gotten. No birds, no bugs, just the distant echo of water dripping from leaves. Then you hear a soft snap, like someone stepping on dry wood. You freeze. You rotate your mirror. To your left, a bent sapling, rigged with tension cable, the kind that stores kinetic energy like a drawn bow. You inch closer, using your probe to trace the wire. It leads to a trip mechanism, just 2 pebbles, one resting on top of the other. Disturb one, and the sapling whips forward, swinging a spiked log aimed chest high. A swing trap. The ingenuity is maddening. These aren't traps you step on. They reach out to hurt you. Your team helps you anchor the sapling, tie it down, and disarm the trigger. You keep the spike. It's made from welded rebar, shaped into a crude triangle. You pocket it. Talisman of survival. Later, you break for lunch. MREs taste like regret, but they fill the hole. Jackson cracks a joke. Bet the VC don't have to eat this crap. You laugh because it's true. That's the second lesson of the jungle. Humor is armor. Without it, every creak and crunch would drive you mad. You swap stories over instant coffee. Someone mentions a tale from 2 weeks ago. A guy stepped on what he thought was a mine. It clicked, froze him in place. Turned out it was a decoy. No explosive, just a tin can with a spring, designed to paralyze with fear. Now that's psychological warfare, someone mutters. Historians still argue whether these ghost traps were intentional or just battlefield myths amplified by fear. But either way, they worked. Men froze. Units hesitated. The jungle turned into a hallucination. You toss your empty coffee pouch and start walking again. This time, you're headed toward a riverbank. The smell of algae hits you before the water comes into view. The bank is soft, pockmarked with holes. You spot them immediately. Tiny pits, barely visible. Pressure plates disguised with sod and moss. These are toe poppers. They don't kill. Not directly. They maim ankles. Rupture calves. Designed to tear muscle and force medevac. Your team spreads out, marking the traps with colored ribbon. You disarm 3, but the 4th is different. It's bigger, deeper, and the pressure plate is made from salvaged U.S. radio parts. Interesting. You take a closer look. Inside, instead of a single charge, there are 2. One above, one below. A double blast trap. First explosion lifts the foot. The second catches the torso. Some twisted genius built this. You can't help but admire the craftsmanship. The enemy doesn't have your budget, your training, or your machines, but they have creativity and patience and an intimate understanding of fear. By sunset, you've cleared 15 traps. You feel in your joints, in your neck, in your dreams. That night, back at base, you clean your gear in silence. Jackson sits beside you, staring into a lantern like it owes him an apology. Then he says something that sticks with you. You know what these traps are, man? They're not weapons. They're messages. You ask what he means. He shrugs. They're saying, we see you. We know where you walk. We know what you fear. And we don't need to touch you to hurt you. That gives you pause. Because he's right. Each trap you disarm feels like a conversation. Between you and someone invisible. Someone who's already won half the battle. Because you're already afraid. You try to sleep. You really do. But all you can see is that bent sapling. That glint in the brush. That fuse that burned too slow. And the silence that always comes right before a scream. Dawn doesn't rise. It seeps in. A pale, jaundiced light bleeds through the canopy, turning every dew-laced leaf into a fogged mirror. The jungle is damp with anticipation. You stretch, bones popping like popcorn kernels, and wonder if it's even possible to wake up out here. Because sleep feels like a negotiation, not a rest. Your mission today is different. Not a sweep. A search. Command wants intel from a recently abandoned Viet Cong tunnel site. Rumor is they pulled out fast, left booby traps behind. The brass calls it a hot ghost zone. You call it death warrant. But orders are orders. You sling your gear, click your helmet strap, and follow your squad into the green throat of the jungle. It isn't long before you find the tunnel entrance. Or rather, it finds you. A soft depression in the earth, oval-shaped, barely knee-high, hidden beneath ferns and a false floor of palm fronds. It smells of salt, rust, and something deeper, like wet cloth forgotten for years. You go prone. You peer inside. The darkness is so thick it feels warm. The edges of your vision tighten. Not from fear, though there's that too, but from anticipation. The kind that comes when you realize you are about to crawl into the unknown. Your tunnel rat, Ramos, wriggles up beside you. Small frame, big guts. A man who voluntarily goes face first into places most people wouldn't poke with a stick. He checks his flashlight, taps his .45, winks. Back in 20, he says, "You're never sure if that's a joke." He disappears. You watch the rope tied to his belt slowly feed into the hole. Inch by inch. It's your only lifeline, literally. If he tugs twice, all's well. 3 tugs, trouble. 4, God help him. 5 minutes. 10, still no tug. Your hands get clammy. Finally 1, 2 tugs. He's alive. He emerges covered in clay and curses. Tripwires everywhere. He spits. One was strung between a rat's spine and a spoon. Can you believe that? And you can. Because that's today's lesson. Viet Cong traps weren't just tools of war. They were expressions of resourceful obsession. Mainstream historical fact? The VC used an estimated 250 miles of tunnel in Siuchi alone, many rigged with pressure triggers, false floors, and even swinging snake traps. Live bamboo pits filled with vipers. You and your team inch into the tunnel after Ramos clears the first stretch. The darkness swallows sound. Everything gets muffled. Your own breath sounds like it's echoing through a drain pipe. You pass through narrow throats of earth, shoulder-scraping crawl spaces where the walls exhale spores into your lungs. Flashlights throw shadows that stutter and dance like ghosts behind glass. Then you see it, a low cavity, widened into a trap chamber. At the far end, suspended like a chandelier of horror, is a set of hanging bones. Human femurs, strung on wire. Just beneath, an empty space in the floor, a pit. You shine your light inside. Spikes, rusted, razor sharp, but the brilliance is above the pit. One wrong step and the bones fall, not to injure, but to alert. The jangling sound would trigger VC guards posted farther down the line. It's a silent alarm system, in the world's noisiest environment. You disarm it by securing the wire, cut the trip, disable the counterweight, and step carefully. You keep going. You find a cache room, half-buried crates, likely ammo or rice. But the floor feels off. You kneel. Tap. Hollow. Pressure plate? No. Trick floor. Underneath. A jar. Inside. A scorpion nest. Booby trap triggered not by weight, but by curiosity. Had you pulled the crate, it would have tipped the jar, releasing venomous chaos in a confined space. That's the day's quirky detail. Scorpion traps were rare, but documented, usually tied to jungle superstition and psychological warfare. The idea wasn't just pain, it was fear, a stinging, crawling undoing of the body's balance. You back out. Slow. Steady. On the surface again, you breathe air like it's dessert. Your squad takes a break, and someone shares a theory. What if the tunnels aren't just hideouts? What if they're the battlefield itself? The idea lingers. Historians still debate whether the tunnel complexes were primarily defensive structures or part of a long-game psychological campaign. Were they built to hide or to haunt? Either way, they worked. Because now, you're looking at every tree trunk like it could open a door. Later that afternoon, while navigating a bamboo grove, you encounter a new beast, the venom spike. It's a pressure-activated dart trap made from sharpened bamboo, dipped in cobra venom, and mounted on a spring trigger. You see the wire just in time. Tension line strung ankle-high, nearly invisible unless the light hits it just right. You disarm it, cut the mechanism, and examine the dart tip. Still wet. Recently set. Which means someone was here. Watching. Maybe. Or maybe the trap was a leftover. But the thought clings to your spine like cold sweat. These aren't old bones you're walking on. This place is alive. Breathing. Waiting. Before nightfall, you pass through a mangrove corridor. You find an odd item. A fragment of a bicycle frame, rigged to a pulley system. It's a gravity trap. You do the math. Step on the tripwire, and the bicycle axle acts as a counterweight to swing a spiked bamboo log directly into your path. Like an ancient trap made from junkyard poetry. You laugh. You can't help it. Who the hell thought of this? Jackson jokes. Charlie's basically MacGyver, if MacGyver hated your kneecaps. But the joke fades as you realize the truth. You're not fighting an army. You're fighting artisans of annihilation. Each trap you encounter isn't just a threat. It's an essay. A study in pressure, leverage, biology, chemistry, and human expectation. And they're not all meant to kill. Some are designed just to slow you down, confuse you, make you question every step. That's the most terrifying one of all. Doubt. You head back to camp. Feet aching. Shirt soaked. Mind buzzing. That night, you lie on your cot, staring at the canvas above. A lizard scuttles past. You flinch. Not from fear of the lizard, but because everything now looks like a trigger. Even rest. You wake to the sound of something snapping, like a twig breaking underfoot. But it's too rhythmic to be random. A slow, deliberate click, click, click. Your heart thuds. You reach for your weapon before your eyelids are even fully open, adrenaline overriding the fog of sleep. But it's not the enemy. It's the engineer team, already up, already prepping gear. Today is a trap lift operation, planned, not stumbled into. You'll be escorting a detachment to a high-risk site identified by aerial surveillance. Intelligence believes the area was a former staging ground for VC ambushes, heavily trapped to slow American counterattacks. It's called Zone Blue Echo, which, as one of the guys puts it, pretty much screams you're going to lose your toes. Still, duty calls. You gulp down lukewarm coffee, black, bitter, half ash from the pot, and shoulder your pack. The gear list for this kind of mission reads like a medieval horror catalog. Bayonets for probing, mirror sticks for peering under foliage, line markers, and detonator cord. The jungle doesn't welcome you back. It absorbs you. Each step forward feels like signing a contract. The canopy above blocks the sun, and the floor below hides everything else. You're not walking on Earth. You're walking on secrets. And the first one comes quick. A tripwire, stretched taut between two banyan roots. You barely see it. But Nguyen, the team's local scout, spots it mid-stride and drops to a knee. He signals silently. You freeze. Then you all see it. A whip trap. It's a spring-loaded bamboo arm, lined with metal spikes, salvage from U.S. scrap, no less, rigged to snap horizontally across the trail at chest height, meant to eviscerate, or at the very least, scar forever. Nguyen disarms it with surgical precision. You realize something. The engineers aren't just soldiers. They're code-breakers. And this isn't just war. It's a language made of wire, wood, bone, and fear. Mainstream historical fact: American combat engineers were trained in explosive ordnance disposal, EOD, but in Vietnam, their role morphed. They became jungle detectives, reading the terrain like Braille. Every stick misaligned, every leaf disturbed, potential death. The deeper in a zone blue echo you go, the more elaborate the traps. Next, a rock drop device. Above the trail, in the fork of a tree, sits a cluster of camouflage stones packed into a rice sack. Beneath it, a pressure plate disguised as a root system. Step on it, and gravity does the rest. What's new here is the decoy. The trail is split, one side visibly trapped. The other seems safe. Too safe. So you check both. And sure enough, the safe path hides a secondary trigger, connected not to rocks, but to a buried grenade with a tripwire anchor. This is the trap after the trap. The double-tap logic of desperation. If the explosion doesn't kill you, the false confidence will. And just like that, you're relearning fear. You can't trust obvious signs. You can't trust the lack of signs. Everything is suspect. This brings you to an unassuming clearing. A small pond, shallow, filled with greenish water. You approach cautiously. Water in the jungle is often mined. And sure enough, metal glints just beneath the surface. Not a mine, a spike mat. Bamboo sharpened to hypodermic points. Dipped in excrement. Buried under a thin, artificial mud layer. You don't need to step on it for it to work. You just need to wait. Fringe historical tidbit. Some VC units engineered pungy pits with delayed infection in mind. Their goal wasn't instant death. It was slow removal from combat. A septic soldier was a logistical nightmare for medics. But what's worse? The water smells sweet, like spoiled syrup. You realize the trap was baited, likely with animal blood or fermented sugarcane, to draw you in. You mutter, this jungle doesn't want you dead. It wants you damaged. The squad nods. Grim humor's the only kind left. By mid-afternoon, your team reaches a termite mound. Harmless. Think again. Nguyen walks a wide circle around it, tapping the soil. He finds something. A small hole at the base of the mound, plugged with wax. You lean in. He gently removes the wax. And inside, a wire. It leads underground, across a narrow trench, to what looks like a discarded oil drum. You immediately recognize the smell. Ammonium nitrate. Homemade explosive. This is an IED, an ambush bomb, rigged inside a termite mound. Historians still argue whether traps like this were innovations from local commanders or part of a centralized VC doctrine, whispers the squad sergeant Harris. But whoever thought of it had a twisted imagination. He's not wrong. That's today's open scholarly debate. Was the ingenuity of these traps purely grassroots, village to village, based on available junk? Or did the Viet Cong pass these designs like sacred recipes? Either way, the result was genius-level menace. You neutralize the mound. Then comes the scariest part of the day, the sound of silence. You reach a grove where everything stops. No birds, no bugs, no wind. Just a stillness that smells like warning. Nguyen halts. This place, he begins, has ghosts. Not literal ones. But you get it. He taps a tree trunk. It's hollow. The tree has been carved out from the inside. A trap shell. You shine a light in the knothole and spot wires. The entire tree has been transformed into a vertical claymore. A fragmentation bomb, packed with nails and shrapnel, triggered by motion sensors or tripline tension. This one's not active, but the message is clear. Even nature itself has been weaponized. The sun begins to lower. Golden beams slant through the leaves, turning your sweat into sparkles. But there's no time to admire the scenery. On the return route, Nguyen points out a crude toy half buried in the dirt. A wooden doll, childlike, painted with bright red berries. "Don't touch it," he says immediately. Why? Because it's the bait for a psychological trap. Kids in the area sometimes unknowingly served as camouflage. VC saboteurs would plant toys on trails used by U.S. patrols. Touch the toy, and click, off goes the mine beneath it. It's a war that rewrote the rules of humanity. You leave it untouched. Someone whispers, "I don't know what scares me more, what we see or what we don't." You return to base in the dark. Nightfall comes fast in the jungle. You barely recognize camp, just a ring of glow sticks and shadows around canvas tents. A soldier plays guitar, strumming slowly. It's not music, it's a heartbeat. You settle into your cot, exhausted, haunted, wired. You close your eyes, and behind your eyelids, you see wires. You hear clicks. You dream of trees that bleed and dolls that watch. And you realize, in this war, disarming a trap isn't just a task. It's an act of faith. You don't dream of home tonight. You dream of footsteps that never fall, of trails where the leaves are too perfect, where silence feels choreographed, where even a bird call might be a trap, and the roots curl like fingers over things best left buried. When you wake, your boots are damp again, not from rain, just the jungle's slow crawl into everything. Humidity here isn't air. It's liquid, and it clings to you, seeps into every seam of your gear, and softens your skin like meat left too long in a stew. Today isn't recon. Today is extraction. Yesterday, your unit flagged a zone riddled with so many traps it wasn't worth clearing. Too unstable, too risky. But somewhere in that mess lies a dead American. The missing radio operator from a supply convoy ambushed last week. And now you're going back in to retrieve what's left. Nobody says this out loud, but you all feel it. This is about dignity. You shoulder your gear with the quiet ritual of habit. Zip, buckle, click. The engineer team joins you. Same faces, a few new lines of exhaustion drawn across them. Nguyen chews silently on dried fish. Harris, the sergeant, mutters, "Let's go dig through hell." You take point. The jungle's green curtain opens slowly, revealing a familiar madness. 10 steps in, you spot the first booby trap. It's simple, too simple. A pungy pit disguised under a lattice of twigs and banana leaves. The real giveaway is the smell. The pit is baited with dead rats, fermented just enough to make predators curious and humans recoil. You bypass it, marking the edge with fluorescent tape. Then another trap, a fragmentation mine, Russian-made, buried just under the soil. And a third, hanging above you, hidden in a bird's nest. That one's new, a ceramic grenade wired to a vine trigger. If a soldier brushed past it, the nest would fall and detonate mid-air. Like a bad joke from a forgotten god. Mainstream historical fact. Many Viet Cong booby traps in Vietnam weren't just designed to kill, but to maim. A wounded soldier took more resources, more manpower, and more morale to manage than a dead one. Some estimates suggest 70% of traps were injury-focused, not lethal. But there's something else today. A pattern. The traps seem nervous, clustered in odd ways, too close together, like someone was in a rush. Fringe historical tidbit. In the final years of the war, captured VC notebooks revealed that some field engineers started planting decoy traps. Harmless-looking dummies designed only to spook, not to kill. Their logic? Waste U.S. time, fray U.S. nerves. You pass one of those now. A broken bottle tied to a string, its mouth stuffed with dirt and broken matchsticks. False alarm, but it still spikes your pulse. And then you find him, or rather what's left, tangled in the underbrush. Face down, his boots are still on, laces intact, but the rest of him is bloated, blurred by insects, almost unrecognizable. The jungle has started to reclaim him, vines cradling the body like mourning arms. You don't need a name tag. The tattoo on his forearm gives it away. McCready, from Ohio, loved baseball, Hummed Aretha Franklin when he thought nobody could hear. The team doesn't speak. Harris kneels, gently checking the body for booby traps. Because yes, even corpses were sometimes rigged. Not out of cruelty, out of strategy. Historians still argue whether corpse trapping was widespread or rare. Harris murmurs. Some say it was policy. Others say it was just desperation. You hold your breath as he lifts McCrady's shoulder. Click. You freeze. Then sigh. Just the sound of a branch shifting underweight. False alarm. The engineers get to work. Body extraction is delicate in a trapped zone. Every leaf must be suspect. Every bush must be brushed. And time? Time is the real enemy. You fan out, watching the perimeter. Your ears pick up everything. The whir of a cicada, the snap of distant twigs, the low murmur of winds counting as he probes the ground. He's muttering something. You lean in. 3, 4, 5, 6, no. No 7. Where's 7? What's wrong? You whisper. VC always planted traps in prime numbers. It's habit. Ritual. You blink and start scanning. There, they missed one. A small, rusted shell casing tied to a tripwire, stretched under the recovery tarp. As the body is lifted, the wire would pull tight and detonate a small charge hidden in the soil nearby. Not enough to kill you outright, just enough to scatter parts. You disarm it with a knife and a whisper. Found your 7. You murmur. The engineers nod. This is the part they never put in the manuals. The traps have rhythm. Once McCrady is bagged and secured, you start the slow crawl out. The jungle seems quieter now, less hostile. Or maybe you're just numb. But the exit path isn't clean. 3 paces from safety, you hear a high-pitched buzzing. It's not mechanical. It's bees, swarming from a tree hollow to your left. Normally, that'd be bad enough. But then you see it. A wire strung through the hive. A vibration-activated mechanism. The bees aren't the trap, they're the alarm. And if they sting, your movement might trip the actual device. You freeze. The engineers freeze. Even the bees seem to pause, midair, judging you. You hold your breath. Sweat drips into your eyes. Your rifle suddenly weighs 1,000 pounds. Nguyen takes a slow step back. The bees rise, then settle. No one speaks for 5 minutes. When you finally reach base, you don't celebrate. You just sit, in silence, like miners who survived the cave-in. Someone opens a ration tin. The smell of peaches. Harris says softly, "Imagine dying with peaches in your mouth." You try to laugh, but it sticks in your throat. Later that night, you write a letter you don't send. Dear Mom, I think today I almost didn't make it back, but I did. Because a man named Nguyen remembered that traps come in 7s. You sleep with your boots on tonight, just in case. The morning tastes like metal. You sip tepid coffee from a dented canteen. The rust just faint enough not to matter. Someone's burning something acrid in the trash pit nearby. Plastic, maybe, or old socks. And the stench crawls across camp like a reminder that even safety smells like ruin out here. You've been assigned to work with the rat teams today. Officially, they're known as tunnel rats. Combat engineers trained to infiltrate the Viet Cong's underground networks. Narrow, black corridors where a man can barely crawl, let alone fight. But everyone just calls them rats. Not as an insult, as a weird kind of respect. They do what others won't. Slip into holes that whisper death. Feel the ground's pulse from the inside. And today, you're going in with them. There's a briefing in the supply tent. It's dark, stuffy, and someone's drawn a chalk map on a flattened ammo crate. The sergeant circles an area near Cu Chi. We've got intel about a honeycomb system. 3 levels deep. Might be a weapons cache. Might be nothing. Your job, assess, disarm, extract what you can. You raise your hand. Any air vents? Smoke flush options. He grunts. VC adapted. Started planting reverse baffle vents. Smoke in, and the pressure just sends it right back up the entrance. Like blowing into a shotgun. Comforting. Before you gear up, an old rat named Ellis leans in close. Rule 1. If it smells like cinnamon or soap, back out. They lace claymores with scented soaps to mask explosive residue. Smells like your grandma. It's probably lethal. Noted. You strip down. No flak vest. No rifle, just a flashlight, a .45, a bayonet, a coil of string, and a breath you won't be using much. You squeeze into the tunnel. Instant regret. It's not just tight, it's alive. The walls are slick, pulsing faintly with insect traffic. Earth falls into your collar. You can't fully stretch your arms. Each breath sucks in warm rot. You crawl. 1 foot. Another. Pull the string behind you. Slowly, so your team knows you're still moving. The light catches scrawled graffiti on the clay wall. Some stick figure dancing. A crudely carved face with hollow eyes. Then you hit the first chamber. Mainstream historical fact. The Viet Cong's tunnel systems weren't just escape routes. They were cities underground. Some included hospitals, sleeping quarters, radio rooms, even kitchens with concealed smoke vents. Entire lives were lived in those shadows. This room is empty. Mostly. You shine your light into the corners and see teeth. Not human. Boar teeth, strung like charms on a wire. A scare tactic, maybe. Or a warning. Then you notice the tripwire, disguised as a cobweb. You pause. Trace it. It runs to a canister buried in the wall, shaped like a coconut. Fringe tidbit. Some VC traps use recycled American ordnance. Shell casings from U.S. grenades repacked with local black powder and shrapnel. Irony. Weaponized. You snip the wire. Move on. You reach a fork. Left slopes deeper. Right leads upward. You go left. Why? No idea. Instinct. Stupidity. Narrative momentum. And that's where it happens. A faint scraping. You freeze. Then a whisper. Ko nu oi trong du. Someone's in there. Your light flickers. You hear movement, then stillness. Historians still argue whether VC tunnel guards were rotated daily, or if some lived there for weeks. Some captured soldiers swore they heard lullabies echoing from the dark. No one's fully verified it. You raise the pistol, flick the light to high beam, and see nothing. But the air's different. You crawl forward, slowly, heart ticking like a detonator. Then your hand sinks. Not far, just enough. You jerk it back. Bamboo skewers, sharpened and smeared with something oily. The floor was a false panel, barely able to hold your weight. A trap not meant to kill, but to cripple. You inch around it, then find something stranger. A small clay Buddha, nestled into a cranny in the wall. Fresh incense burned down to a stub beside it. You've heard stories. Sometimes, the VC left shrines in the tunnels. Not just for luck, but as spiritual traps. Places the enemy might hesitate to desecrate. Soft psychology. You nod to it. No offense, buddy. You whisper. You keep moving. The air changes again. More humid. You realize you're near a water table. You shine the light and see a frog, sitting in a puddle, just staring. Why does it unsettle you? Because the frog's wired. Tiny thread around its belly, leading into a crevice in the wall. Who booby traps a frog? You back away. When you finally reach the target chamber, it's a supply cache. Ammunition, maps, medical gauze, even some looted U.S. rations. You start tagging everything. Then a hiss. Not a person. A pipe. The VC rigged chemical smoke, timed to a pressure plate you must have triggered. It won't kill you, but it'll flood the tunnel in seconds. You jam a wet rag in your mouth, grab the most vital documents, and scramble back. Coughing. Eyes burning. The frog trap goes off, but it's not explosive. Just another hiss. A decoy. A test. Above you, someone's yelling, pulling the string. You follow it. You surface to daylight, gasping. They pull you out like a cork. You collapse in the mud, the world spinning. Your face is streaked with soot and clay. You're shaking. Nguyen crouches beside you, offers a canteen. Did you find anything? You hold up the maps. He smiles. Then the rat lives another day. That night, you shower with your clothes still on, just to rinse the memory out. But the tunnel doesn't leave. Not really. It clings like fungus. You sleep, finally, and dream of the frog. The way it watched you, like it knew. The jungle never stays quiet for long. At dawn, the birds start up again. The same 6 calls on an endless, mocking loop. You've already named them out of boredom: sarcastic pigeon, bipolar cricket, shrieking toddler on a swing. None of them help your nerves. Today, you're heading into the belly of the green. Not a tunnel this time, but something far more deceptive. Above-ground traps, masked by nature, waiting for boots like yours. Welcome to the theater of the invisible. You sling your gear over your shoulder. Bolt cutters, pressure probes, a prodder stick, and your lucky gloves. The ones with the burn marks from the last trip. They're not actually lucky, but they've survived, which is more than you can say for some of the squad. First stop, a trail marked by orange peels. Not a joke. The Viet Somme often left misleading markers, fruit skins, broken branches, to lure patrols onto safe trails. Trails that had been meticulously booby-trapped in advance. The trick wasn't just in hiding the traps. It was in manipulating your assumptions. Mainstream historical fact. Over 30% of American casualties in Vietnam were due to booby traps and mines. That's not from direct combat. That's from stepping wrong. You arrive at the trailhead. Looks ordinary enough. A dirt path, foliage pressed flat, a few crushed twigs. But your instincts tingle. Something's off. The squad halts. You kneel and prod ahead with the stick. And there it is, just a few inches beneath the surface, a pungy pit. Not very wide, but deep. Bamboo stakes line the inside like teeth in a wooden maw. Most are tipped with excrement, human or animal. A secondary infection was often the real killer. You dig it out with gloved hands. Disarm. Flag to sight. Keep moving. A few meters ahead, someone yells. Miller's foot is frozen midair, just above a patch of soft earth. He didn't step, but he almost did. You crawl forward on your belly, eyes scanning the ground like a monk deciphering sacred text. And there it is, a single thin filament, almost invisible. A tripwire tied to a grenade pin, anchored beneath a camouflage steel pot. It's crude. It's brilliant. You defuse it with sweaty hands. Miller exhales. Fringe tidbit. Some VC fighters reconfigured unexploded American cluster bomblets in anti-personnel traps, embedding them inside hollowed logs or fake tree roots. They called them forest teeth. You spot 3 more devices before lunch. One under a banana leaf. One inside a rusted ration tin, baited with a chocolate bar. And one beneath a fake turtle shell. Who booby traps a turtle? Same kind of genius who wires a frog? Probably. Historians still argue whether these hyper-inventive traps were the result of formal training from Soviet bloc advisors, or just the desperate creativity of rural fighters with time on their hands and a deep understanding of terrain. You stop for a water break. The canteen water tastes like warm coins. You don't care. While sipping, you spot an odd pattern in the tree bark, a notch too clean, too horizontal. You tap it. Thunk. A deadfall. Someone had rigged a bamboo log above the trail, balanced on a fulcrum. Tripwire below. When activated, the log would swing down like a battering ram, spine height. Enough to break ribs. Kill outright if it hit the neck. You stand back. Sketch in your notebook. Mark it with red tape. Next sight, a rice paddy near the tree line. Looks peaceful, verdant, almost cinematic. But you know better. You wade in slowly, probing ahead. The muck sucks at your boots like it wants to keep you. Leeches swirl. A water buffalo watches you with open contempt. Then you feel it. A slight vibration through the prodded stick. Metal on metal. You kneel. Dig carefully. It's a landmine. But not just any landmine. This one's been modified. Instead of a single blast cone, it has dual pressure plates and secondary wiring. Probably a daisy chain to other devices. Possibly a US-made M14, reworked with homemade fragmentation shells. It's nasty. It's mean. And it's right under your foot. You freeze. Time stretches. You whisper, "Hey, call for Jameson. He's your bomb guy. Nerves like granite. It takes 15 minutes, but he gets it out. You breathe again. The weirdest trap of the day. A baby shoe, hung from a branch with fishing line. The kind of thing that makes your heart jump and your brain freeze. Is it bait? Is it just there to mess with your head? No wire. No trigger. Just out. You sit in the dirt and wonder how long it takes to psychologically break a person without even firing a shot. Probably not long. As evening sets in, the green turns golden. Everything's beautiful and murderous at once. You pass a field of elephant grass and find another gem, a foot snare. Fishing line coiled around a tension stick, rigged to snap upward and drive a stake through the calf. Silent, bleeding, immobile. You cut the line, feel your hands tremble slightly. You try not to think about how many you didn't see. Back at camp, you compare notes with the other teams. A guy from 2nd Platoon found a pit trap with stakes tipped in what he swears was crushed glass and chili powder. Just to make it burn more, he says, shaking his head. You laugh too loud. That's becoming normal. The medic patches up a guy who fell for a fake radio. It was left in a crate on a stump, looking freshly abandoned. He opened it and lost 2 fingers. The VC don't need to kill you to win. They just need you broken, afraid to walk, afraid to trust what you see. You sit by the fire later and watch the sparks drift up like fireflies. No one says much. Too tired, too wired, too much tension packed into a day where every root might have had a bomb under it. You pull off your boots, dump out half a kilo of jungle, and find yourself whispering, "Not bad for a day where I didn't explode. Not bad at all." Night in the jungle is a liar. You'd think darkness would mute everything, slow the world down, wrap it in cotton silence. But no, the jungle gets louder. Frogs scream. Crickets turn into jackhammers. Leaves rustle when no wind blows. You hear things that might not be real, or might be inches from your neck. And tonight, you're on night patrol. You volunteered. Not because you're brave, because sleep is harder than walking blind into the jungle with a flashlight and a half-charged radio. At least here, you can do something about the danger. The team's mission: recon and clear a stretch of trail suspected to be laced with new traps. The catch: no lights. Infrared goggles are too rare. Your eyes will have to adjust, or you'll trip and die in the most humiliating way, by stepping into a bamboo snare wearing your lucky socks. You push through wet leaves. Everything glistens in moonlight like it's been dipped in oil. Your hand stays tight on the prodder stick. Every few feet, you stop. Tap, tap, tap. You prod ahead like a blind man, searching for a staircase made of knives. Then you freeze. A smell: charcoal, burned metal, and fish sauce. You whisper, "Traps nearby." Why the fish sauce? Fringe trick. Viet Cong sometimes mix strong odors into their traps to cover the scent of oil or explosives. Fish sauce, urine, even garlic. Smells that belonged here. Smells you'd ignore until it was too late. You drop to a crouch and skin a path. There, just to the right of a root. The ground has a slightly different texture, a subtle seam around a palm-sized circle. It's not natural. That's the lid of a bouncing Betty. This one's not American. It's a DIY copy. Historians still argue whether these Betty clones were taught in Soviet training manuals or developed organically by the VC's more inventive minds. Either way, it's bad news. Bouncing Bettys don't just explode. They jump waist-high first, then shred everything in a radius. You signal for the squad to halt. You dig with surgical care. Your fingers brush wires. You isolate the trigger. You sweat like a politician in court. And then, it's done. Disarmed. You mark it. Keep moving. Hours pass like soup. Everything's slow, sticky, unforgiving. You come across a path that wants to be stepped on. Leaves arranged too perfectly. A clearing that looks like a postcard. You shake your head. Too easy. You sweep it with the prodder. Nothing. But then you look up, and your blood chills. Above you, stretched across 2 trees, a rope. Thick, frayed, anchored to something heavy hidden in the canopy. It's a reverse deadfall, triggered by stepping into the clearing below. The weight up top could be a spiked log, could be a cement block wrapped in jungle netting. Either way, gravity's on its side. You carefully avoid the trigger line. Snip it. The rope slackens, but the payload stays put. You'll report it to the demolition guys later. No point in getting crushed by a booby trap that didn't even notice you were polite. You keep walking. Now it's misting. Not quite rain. Just enough to turn the floor to soup and fog up your glasses. The jungle smells like rot, metal, and the inside of an old boot. Your next find is an eye-opener. Literally. Someone rigged an eye-level tripwire across a narrow trail. Why? Because not all traps are foot-triggered. This one was connected to a flashbang, meant to blind, disorient, and reveal your position in a panic. Not lethal, just cruel. You cut it. Log it. Behind you, someone whispers, "You think there's a trap made of snakes?" You snort. Only if they teach cobras to follow orders. Then you remember a fringe case. A report from a patrol near Pleiku where a soldier opened a wooden crate expecting ammo and found 3 live kite snakes. Someone had starved them, sealed them in, and rigged the box to pop open if jostled. Technically not a trap, more like an angry surprise. Later that night, the trail narrows. You find yourself walking single file across a mossy log spanning a stream. It's slick. The water below is dark, too dark to see the bottom. Halfway across, your boot taps something under the moss. You stop, drop flat, just under the surface, a pressure plate. It's wired to something under the log. You hold your breath, carefully lift your foot, step backward. You almost vomit from the tension. That log was a death bridge. After that, you check everything. Even ants look suspicious. You find a scare tactic trap near a game trail. No explosive, just a series of sharpened sticks suspended by tension lines. When triggered, they crash down and stab into the ground like the claws of a giant monster. Designed to make you run, and running in the jungle. That's the real trap. By the time you return to base, the sky is going pale. Birds are starting their nonsense again. Your squad looks like ghosts. Mud-streaked, wide-eyed, barely coherent. The sergeant claps you on the back. 10 traps cleared. 0 detonated. Not bad. You say thanks. But what you're really thinking is, how many were missed? That's the cruel magic of the Vietnam jungle. You only find the traps they want you to find. Your body aches. It's not from injury or exhaustion, though those are always whispering from the corners. It's the kind of ache that seeps in when you've been crouching in alert stillness for hours, expecting death to come from the dirt, or the leaves, or the next step. Today, you're in for something worse than patrol. Today is minefield duty. Hey, remember how last night's traps were clever, personalized, twisted like a psych test made from bamboo? Well, now you're dealing with something colder, less artistic, but somehow more horrifying. Minefields aren't about ingenuity. They're about volume, about grinding your enemy down until they're too scared to move. Every leaf is suspect. Every footfall is a gamble. It's not chess. It's Russian roulette with 10 chambers and 9 bullets. You start at the edge of a recently discovered enemy supply route. Intel says they've laid something serious across this ridge. Possibly Soviet-made PMN-1 mines. Or worse, homebrew Chinese Type 72s that melt if you touch them wrong. But you're here anyway. You and 3 other engineers are assigned to clear a 50-meter stretch so that a medical evac path can be cut through. And no, you don't get a robot. You're the robot. First, you lie flat, face to the leaves, nose full of dirt and mildew. You prod with a bayonet, 1 inch at a time. The prodder doesn't beep or flash. It just tells you something's there when it won't push in. It's like gardening. If the carrots explode, after 5 minutes, you feel resistance. A click, something under the loam. You gently brush the leaves aside. The top of a PMN-1 mine stares back like a dull green eye. You swallow hard. These things are tiny, just 6 inches wide. You could rest your coffee mug on it and never know. Your hand finds the edges, brushes away the dirt. You slide a pin into the safety hole, lock it, then pry it from the earth like a rotten tooth. First mine disarmed. 49 meters to go. It's hot, airless. The jungle is still. Even the bugs shut up when you're in a minefield, almost like they're waiting to see what happens. You wonder who planted these. Probably teenagers. That was the kicker. Some of the mines found in Vietnam were laid by village kids forced into service, told that they were protecting their home from invaders. Given a sack of Soviet mines and pointed at a map, historians still argue whether this widespread conscription of youth was part of a larger Soviet directive or simply local desperation. Either way, you can't blame the devices. They're just tools. The second mine you find is homemade. It's packed inside a Coca-Cola can. Seriously, you smile at the irony. One man's drink is another man's landmine. But it's not funny, really. The enemy reused everything. Empty food tins, grenade casings, even rusted engine parts. If it could fit explosives and a pressure trigger, it was fair game. You disarm the can, mark it with red tape, crawl forward. Your buddy 20 feet away calls out, "I've got a cluster." You shuffle over. He points. 5 mines, close together. A daisy chain. These are a VC specialty. Wires several devices together, so one trigger sets off the rest. If the first doesn't kill you, the shockwave of the others probably will. You sit back, plan the disarm order. There's no manual for this, only instinct. As you work, a memory flickers, a story you heard during briefing. A guy in another unit found a mine under a log, lifted the log, thinking he could access it from above. Turned out the log was the mine. Hollowed out, packed with C4, pressure rigged. He never got to tell anyone not to do that. You refocus. Slow, deliberate. After 20 minutes, the daisy chain is neutralized. You've cleared 6 mines in the last hour. You take a breath, look up, and find your face inches from a spider the size of your hand. You scream, like full lung, unashamed scream. Because here's the thing, it's not the bombs that break you. It's everything else. The crawling, the sweating, the anticipation, the way your heart races every time a twig snaps, even if it's just your boot, and the way your bladder wants to quit on you every time you touch metal under the soil. Next mine's a trip, literally. You discover it's rigged with a nearly invisible nylon filament, tied to a pressure trigger hidden under a fake patch of grass. The clever part? The filament's been doubled. A decoy length across the obvious path, and a real one stretched diagonally through the bushes. If you only cut the fake, you'd still die. You sigh. The enemy knows your habits. They know how you think. So they plan traps not just for your body, but for your mind. That's what a good minefield does. It doesn't just kill. It makes movement a crime. You crawl, inch by inch, and wonder, what if someone booby-trap your trail? A backward mine? One that goes off when you retreat? It's happened before. One fringe report tells of a VC-made anti-backtrack mine called the Cradle. Historians debate whether it was real or just myth, but it allegedly triggered only when pressure was removed, not applied. Step on it. Nothing. Step off. Boom. So yeah, you never let your foot linger too long. By sundown, the squad has cleared 19 mines. Sweat has soaked your uniform so thoroughly it feels like you've been swimming in syrup. Your fingers tremble. Your back is toast. Your mind is mush. But you're still alive. And now one last mine. You almost miss it. It's embedded in a tree stump, tucked beneath bark that's been painted green, triggered by a tripwire strung knee-high. So faint it only caught moonlight when you tilted your head just right. A stump mine. Someone waited for you to think the area was clear. Waited for you to lean against a tree for a smoke. You don't smoke anymore. You disarm it. Mark it. Stand up. Your knees crackle like breakfast cereal. The squad leader radios in. Minefield sweep complete. Path cleared. You don't cheer. You don't high-five. You just whisper, "Let's get out before it changes its mind." That's the thing about landmines. They don't expire. They don't forgive. They just wait. Dawn arrives with a stomachache. It's not food poisoning. It's not malaria. It's pre-mission nausea. A special blend of dread and stale coffee sloshing in your gut. Because today, you're not clearing a trail. You're walking one. That might sound easy. Safer even. But the truth is, there's a particular kind of terror reserved for when you're the first set of boots stepping into the green after a fresh overnight ambush. And it's your turn to walk point. You're not alone. There's a squad of infantry behind you. 12 guys depending on your eyes, your gut, and your boot pressure to guide them safely through a patch of jungle that may or may not have been seeded with death while you slept. You walk slow, one foot hovering midair for a breath longer than is sane. Because what if this, right here, is the inch they rigged? You step. Nothing. You breathe again. Then again, every breath could be your last. Today's patrol is through a zone recently swept for traps. But swept is never the same as cleared. Jungle creeps back. So do the VC. If you sleep, they replant. If you blink, they disappear. So the engineers are walking point this time. Not the grunts. Because if there's a new trap, better it's spotted by someone trained to recognize the wrong kind of leaf pile. This is where you learn to read dirt like a story. The soil here tells lies, some dry, some damp, some freshly disturbed. The roots of a banyan tree bend weirdly, maybe from shovel last night. A vine has been rerouted, coiled gently over something. Natural? Maybe. But your instincts say no. You kneel, pull back the vine. Beneath, a strip of clay, freshly packed, hiding a pressure plate. You freeze. You didn't step on it, but you could have. That's the kind of thing that turns your stomach into battery acid. It was that close. You back the squad up. Disarm the plate. Move forward. You see a pattern in these traps, almost like handwriting. Every unit has a signature. Some VC sappers like pits. Others love spikes. One particular cell in the Quang Ngai region was known for wiring grenades into tree trunks. That's how you get to know your enemy. Not just by face or uniform, but by the shape of their cruelty. Today's traps feel like they were laid by someone clever, someone patient, someone who knows how engineers think, and wants to game that thinking. Case in point, 10 meters ahead, you spot an obvious tripwire strung across a path. You stop the squad, point it out. But this time, your gut twitches. Too obvious. And you're right. A closer look reveals the wire isn't connected to anything. It's a decoy, a psychological tripwire, meant to stall you, make you laugh, make you careless. Because 10 feet further, there's another wire. Invisible. Real. You feel it with your hand. Barely more than fishing line, drawn tight and low. And this one, it's wired to a mortar shell buried in a cooking pot. It would have turned your legs into soup. You disarm both carefully. Show the squad. They nod, suddenly even quieter than before. This is your new routine. Every 10 steps, a new puzzle. Sometimes it's bamboo spikes. Other times, it's shotgun shells lashed to sticks. One nasty trick uses glass. Bottle shards glued to a pivoting swing arm, meant to blind anyone who triggers the trip. And then, there's the snake pits. Not symbolic ones. Real ones. Historians still argue whether these were tactically effective or just terror tactics, but several confirmed reports document traps that opened in nests of venomous snakes. Crates loaded with bamboo pit vipers, rigged to tip when disturbed. No shrapnel, no flame, just panic, chaos, and a lot of screaming. Today, you don't find snakes, but you do find something worse. Mid-morning, you reach a stream. Crystal clear, shallow, just 6 inches of water over a muddy bed. But you've been warned about streams. They're perfect ambush spots. Soft terrain, forced crossings, limited visibility. The squad halts while you inspect the banks. You crouch low, run a stick through the mud, and hit something solid. You clear away muck. There's a smooth cylinder, steel casing, an unexploded M79 grenade. Except, it's wired to a fish trap. It's not just a weapon, it's camouflaged as bait. Somebody new troops might reach for food, or might try to use the net. Boom. That's the level of war you're in now. Booby traps as psychological warfare. No longer about killing. Now about making you afraid to touch anything. Even the water. You cross slowly, hearts hammering, and climb the opposite bank. No boom. Not yet. But the squad is rattled. You can see in their faces. Eyes darting everywhere, even upward, because yes, there have been sky traps. Bamboo maces hung on vine hinges, dropped from trees. You joke, we need helmets for the sides of our heads. They chuckle, weakly, but humor helps. You pause under a thicket of palm. Something rustles. You raise your hand. Stop. The noise again. Soft. Wrong. You edge forward, and see it. A VC tunnel entrance. Half hidden under a bush. Fresh. Now you got a new problem. Tunnels were their arteries, their roads, their bunkers, their kitchens. And some were booby-trapped themselves. Going in unprepared. Suicide. So you mark it. Drop smoke nearby. Call for a tunnel rat team later. But for now, you keep moving. The squad leader taps your shoulder. Half a click to go. Half a click. 500 meters. And that's when the world explodes. Not from a mine. Not from tripwire. From above. It's a homemade claymore, triggered by a remote detonator. Someone was watching. The blast doesn't hit you. Thank the jungle for uneven terrain, but it hits the back 3 men hard. One loses a leg. Another is screaming. The third, silent. You hit the ground, crawling, dirt in your mouth, praying. The trap wasn't meant to catch a single target. It was meant to catch the tail of the squad. When you thought you were safe, someone studied your patrol patterns, guessed your timing, guessed right. You hear shouting, radio calls. A chopper is inbound for medevac. You sit behind a tree, stunned. This is the worst part. The aftermath. You cleared dozens of traps, saved your squad dozens of times, and still 3 men down. Because there's no such thing as 100% safe. Only not dead yet. That night, you clean your tools in silence. Wipe mud from your bayonet. Rewind your wire cutter. Run a dry cloth along the prodder's metal shaft. As if maintenance can wash away what happened. It can't. But you do it anyway. Because tomorrow, you walk again. And the jungle will be waiting. You wake to the smell of rust. Not blood. Though maybe your brain is confused enough to think so. No, this is something subtler. Metal sweat. The bitter scent of wire and dirt rubbed raw, mixed with the oily ghost of yesterday's blast still clinging to your boots. You don't speak as you suit up. No one does. Today's mission is retrace and reclaim. You're returning to a trail you partially cleared 2 days ago, this time to dig deeper. See if the VC came back. See if they buried new surprises in the spaces you once thought were clean. Because out here, nothing stays clean for long. You shoulder your gear, nod to the squad, and step into the brush. The jungle hasn't changed, but you have. There's a sharpness in your eyes today. You scan higher, lower, at the angles you once skipped. Your boots avoid the obvious spots, and your ears no longer trust the silence. It's not paranoia. It's protocol. Backtracking through safe territory has its own dangers. The enemy watches how you clear. They learn. Some even booby-trap your own disarmed zones, counting on your overconfidence. You think about that as you cross a muddy ridge. There's the notch in the tree where you carved a marker. There's the flattened grass where you disarmed a mortar trap. You know it. Familiar territory. But then you spot something new. A tiny white feather, placed delicately on a rock. You freeze. That wasn't there before. You signal halt, squat, and examine it closer. It's just a bird feather. Could be natural. Could be nothing. But you know better. In the Vietnamese jungle, even nothing can kill you. There's a barely visible wire trailing from the rock's base. Following it, you find a trip line running low and taut, connected to a frag grenade inside a coconut shell. Coconut. That's new. Historians still argue whether some of these VC trap designs were locally improvised or copied from older French colonial sabotage manuals. Either way, this one's effective and poetic. A grenade disguised in something that feeds you. You disable it, pocket the feather as a reminder. Leave the coconut. Then, forward again. There's a certain rhythm to the way you move now. Brush parting, eyes scanning, heel-to-toe footfalls with surgical precision. You can feel yourself becoming almost part of the jungle, breathing with it, reading it, and that's when you smell it. Kerosene. Your heart picks up. There's no fuel out here. No reason to smell accelerant. Unless you crouch, press your palm to the dirt. It's damp, but not with water. The soil glistens oddly. That's when you realize it's a burn trap. They've rigged the underbrush with kerosene-soaked cloth, buried low, and wired to a battery. If you'd taken a different step, or lit a cigarette, you'd be a fireball. You carefully remove the ignition source, a crushed flashlight battery, wired to a spark plug. Improvised, but deadly. The VC didn't just want you dead. They wanted you burned. Unrecognizable. There's a special cruelty in that. You keep moving. At mid-morning, you pause near a banyan tree with twisted roots. Something about the shape doesn't sit right. You prod gently. Click. You don't move. The sound came from below. Attention plate. Now you really don't move. The squad freezes too. No one speaks. Slowly, you begin to shift your weight backward. Just a few grams of pressure at a time. Another click. Then silence. You lift your foot and step back. Then immediately drop to your knees, hands in the soil. There it is. a pressure release trap. 2 pounds of TNT in a rainproof box, with nails taped around the interior like shrapnel confetti. All it would have taken was a full step and one unlucky bounce. The trap is crude, but effective. You mark it with red smoke and sit for a second, heart thumping against your ribs like a riot baton. The squad medic offers a sip from his canteen. You decline. There's still more trail to cover. By now, the jungle is hot enough to cook rice. The humidity squeezes sweat from every pore, makes your shirt cling like a second skin, soaked and stinking. You reach a ravine. This one's new. Hadn't been on any of your previous maps. But you know the VC favor these spots. Natural choke points, limited exit paths, perfect for shaping movement. So you switch tactics. Instead of walking the floor, you flank high, following the ridgeline above. It's slower, steeper, but safer. Or so you think. Halfway up, your boot scrapes metal. You freeze. Beneath the moss, a directional mine. Homemade, not a factory claymore. A coffee can, filled with ball bearings and black powder. And it's pointed right at the ravine. Trigger, a fishing line strung tight between 2 saplings. Had you walked the valley floor? Boom. Tin and teeth everywhere. You disarm it. Clip the wire. Empty the can. Your hands shake, just a little. Still alive. Still moving. By late afternoon, the jungle darkens. Not because of dusk, but cloud cover. Rain. Monsoon comes like a freight train in slow motion. The leaves whisper first, then hiss, then howl. Suddenly, you're soaked. The trail turns to soup. Visibility drops. Every footstep squelches. And here's the thing. Rain resets the jungle. It covers tracks, washes away markings, rearms the unknown. You lose sight of the last safe marker. The one you carved earlier? Gone. The logs you used to bypass the marsh. Submerged. Now you're walking blind again. So you slow way down. You prod every patch of ground before stepping. Use your bayonet to slice vines, some of which might be tripwires, some just vines. You don't risk guessing. You find a small shrine under a tree. Just 3 sticks, tied in a triangle, with incense ash at the base. VC warning signs. Danger ahead. They use these for each other. But now you know their meaning, too. You veer west, around the shrine. The path bends, clears, and suddenly, you're out. You emerge near a rice paddy. The rain lightens. Birds return. You've survived another trail walk. But that doesn't mean it's over. You turn. The squad's behind you. All present. All whole. And that's when you realize the jungle almost got you today. Almost. But not quite. Because you've learned how to think like the enemy. How to move like someone being hunted. How to read a trap before it breathes. That's not luck. That's experience. Earned 1 inch at a time. You wipe your boots on the grass. But let's be honest. There's no getting clean out here. Mud has a memory. And so does your gear. The jungle etches its mark into everything. The frayed laces, the sweat-salted straps of your pack, the faint metal tang on your fingertips from 1,000 wires cut by hand. You don't feel like a soldier anymore. You feel like a locksmith trying to crack the world's most murderous puzzle box. Today, though, it's not the trail you're worried about. Today, you're going underground. You're crouched outside a small thatched hut on the edge of a seemingly abandoned village, tucked between rubber trees and rotting banana groves. The squad leader gestures, 2 fingers, then down. That means tunnel. You've been volunteered. Lucky you. You duck inside the hut. Dust motes swirl. The place looks empty, until you find a mat. It's bamboo, and woven unevenly. A little too puffy. You peel it back. There it is, the hatch. A slab of termite-bitten wood with a tiny iron ring. You pull it open slowly. Air wafts up. It smells like soil, sweat, and silence. You grip the edges, slide your legs in, and drop. Welcome to the real battlefield. Tunnel warfare in Vietnam is like playing chess in a broom closet. Tight, dark, and the stakes are life or death. You've heard stories, VC fighters disappearing like smoke into the dirt, only to reappear behind friendly lines. Whole bases built beneath the jungle. Hospitals, ammunition factories, even meeting rooms with tiny desks and lamps. But you're not here to marvel. You're here to clear. The tunnel's barely 3 feet high. You crawl, belly to ground, nose brushing soil. Each breath tastes like fungus and fear. You click your flashlight on. Bad idea. Light gives you comfort, sure, but it also gives them warning. And if there's one thing you don't want, it's a cornered sapper with a grenade. So you switch it off. Now it's just you in the dark. You move by touch. Left hand forward, right hand with the probe. You've been trained for this. The VC were masters of deception below ground. They booby-trapped even their own tunnels, knowing that American soldiers would one day crawl inside. They weren't just traps. They were layered, cascading nightmares. First, there's the spike pit. You brush past it without seeing, only noticing the cool air shift near your cheek. A shallow chamber cut off the main tunnel, lined with sharpened stakes and hidden by a thin film of woven grass. If you turned left instead of right, lights out. Then the crawl space narrows again. You flatten your chest, exhale, and shimmy forward. Suddenly, click, no sound, just a feel, a shift in pressure beneath your right hand. You stop breathing, tiny movement, just your fingers now. You find it, a pull wire strung across the tunnel wall. Carefully, you trace it. It leads to a small hollow, about the size of a lunchbox. Inside, a Soviet-made RGD-5 grenade, propped delicately between bricks, rigged to blow outward when the wire's disturbed. This one wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to collapse the tunnel, bury you alive. You disarm it, barely, then breathe again, and crawl forward. Your world has narrowed to inches now. Every bump in the soil could be a tripwire. Every breeze might mean a ventilation shaft, or a mine exhaust port. You begin to hallucinate shapes in the dark. Snakes, eyes, a whisper that might be just blood pounding in your ears. You shake it off. Tunnel rats, as they were called, often dealt with psychological strain worse than gunfire. It wasn't just the fear of death. It was the claustrophobia, the paranoia, the utter helplessness of not knowing what lay 1 foot ahead. Some reported auditory hallucinations. Others simply froze and had to be pulled out. And yet, here you are, still moving. You hit a junction. Left tunnel slopes down. Right tunnel smells like urine and stale rice. Both are bad, but you choose left. It feels colder, less recently used. And that's when you hit the false floor. A patch of dirt that's packed differently. Softer. You prod it, and it gives. Beneath, a cavity, lined with bamboo skewers and broken glass, meant to impale from below. That's 2 near deaths in 5 minutes. You're getting good at this. At the bottom of the sloped tunnel, you find something different. A small alcove, carved roughly. Inside, a hammock, a tiny stove, an oil lamp, and a doll. It's handmade, torn cloth for the body, buttons for eyes. Probably belonged to a child living down here. Or maybe someone brought it for luck. You pick it up, then freeze. There's a wire beneath it. Not a tripwire. A sensor. The doll's weighted, meant to trigger something if moved too fast. Carefully, so carefully you lay it back. Historians still argue whether traps like these were actually used in VC tunnels or exaggerated by U.S. intelligence reports to emphasize the enemy's cunning. But seeing it here, real, physical, undeniably dangerous, you don't care what historians say. You believe it. The rest of the chamber is booby-trap free. Just personal items. A tin cup, some hand-rolled cigarettes, a photo of a woman holding a baby. You pause. For a second, you forget whose tunnel you're in. Then the floor rumbles. Footsteps above. You shut off your breath. 2, maybe 3 people moving above ground. Not Americans. The voice is soft. Vietnamese. Female. You hear laughter. Then silence. They didn't find the hatch. You exhale and begin crawling back. Retracing your route is almost worse. Every inch has to be rechecked. Every single trap you disarmed might have been rearmed. Some clever VC might be waiting in a side chamber, breathing just like you are, quiet, patient, knife in hand. But nothing happens. You emerge from the tunnel an hour later, blinking into daylight. The squad is there, waiting. You nod once, wordlessly, and they get it. Not just that you survived, but that something down there changed you. You don't even wash your hands. You want to remember the smell, the way the earth breathed, because this war isn't just above ground anymore. It's beneath it, in the places people don't talk about, where death doesn't explode, it waits. You don't talk much after the tunnels. Nobody does. There's a kind of silence that settles over men who've seen things under the soil. Things with wires, teeth, and eyes you swear were watching you from the dark. The rest of the unit leaves you space. They pat your shoulder, hand you a canteen, maybe crack a joke. But no one asks what you saw down there. They know better. So you trudge back to base. And the jungle closes behind you like it never opened at all. But the war doesn't pause. Not even for the tunnel rats. Orders arrive with the morning chopper. There's a new objective. An abandoned plantation near the Cambodian border, surrounded by dense brush and laced with old colonial roads. Intel says the Viet Cong have been planting ghost traps there. You raise an eyebrow. Ghost traps? Turns out that the nickname troops give to something particularly nasty. Deadfall setups triggered by sound, motion, or pressure that kills silently and vanish before help can arrive. No explosions, no flash, just a missing patrol, a snapped neck, or a torso punctured by sharpened stakes. You're going ghost hunting. The plantation is a ruin. Old French architecture swallowed by vines. Decayed walls. A gutted main house with a cracked tile floor that now serves as a breeding ground for vipers. The garden once grew cocoa and coffee. Now it's a field of bamboo thickets and half-collapsed trenches. You and your squad move slowly, eyes low. First trap's a classic. A swing log hidden in the trees, camouflaged with moss and branches. If you step on the pressure plate near the gate, boom, the log comes screaming down from above, spikes forward. One of your guys, Peralta, catches it before it falls, hands bleeding. You defuse it together. 20 paces later, you find a tripwire, but no grenade. Instead, it's tied to a rope loop. A decoy. You follow the rope through the brush and discover the real payload. A rusted landmine rigged with extra glass shrapnel, buried beneath a false rock. Triggered not by the wire, but by the attempt to cut it. That's diabolical. Historians still argue whether traps like these were designed purely for tactical defense or psychological warfare. You murmur, inspecting the design. Personally, I'm voting for evil genius with too much time. The plantation reeks of decay and clever cruelty. Inside the servants' quarters, you find a door with no floor behind it. A pit, 7 feet deep, lined with rebar and broken bottles. At the bottom, a mannequin, painted red, made of pigskin. It takes a second before you realize it's not just for show. It's a ghost marker. VC sappers would leave them to signal that someone died here. Not for the Americans, for each other. A twisted kind of memorial. You push on. In what used to be the garden, you find something even worse. The repeater mine. Here's how it works. One explosive goes off. Anyone rushing in to help steps on a second. If that doesn't get them, the concussion triggers a third, set to detonate 5 seconds after the second is disturbed. The mine isn't just a trap. It's a trap for rescuers. As you're kneeling beside it, tracing wires, a mosquito bites your neck. You slap it instinctively, and your elbow knocks the mine's casing. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Then silence. False alarm. You laugh, a bit too loudly. Peralta punches your arm. You idiot. But he's smiling too. Jungle humor. Another part of the plantation reveals a new trick. The shell stack. Imagine 6 105mm artillery shells, stripped from a stolen U.S. convoy, piled together in a wooden crate, wrapped with barbed wire, and buried beneath the floorboards of a shack. Tripwire to the door hinge. Open it. You don't just die. You erase the GPS coordinates. The level of effort, the engineering precision. It's almost admirable. Like getting outsmarted by a demon with an engineering degree. That night, you sit on the porch of the plantation house, sipping lukewarm instant coffee, watching fireflies float over the ruined gardens. Why go through all this? Someone asks. You shrug. Because fear spreads faster than bullets. And because once you fear the ground, the trees, and your own damn boots, the war is halfway won by the other guy. The next day, you find something truly unnerving. The dead man's drop. A trap designed not just to kill, but to haunt. A body sits slumped against a wall, rotting. Uniform still intact. Dog tag still on. But something's wrong. Too fresh. No scavenger bites. No smell of decay. You inch closer. Then you see the wire. The body's rigged with a tripwire inside the ribcage. The moment someone tries to check vitals or pull the tags, the wire pulls taut and detonates a grenade beneath the corpse. You step back. Gently. Carefully. Trap avoided. The corpse was a puppet. Waited. Preserved. You don't sleep that night. And you don't dream, either. In the days that follow, you clear a dozen more devices, each more creative than the last. A hammock laced with piano wire. A cigarette rigged to a pressure plate. A tea kettle that hisses when moved, not from steam, but gas leak. All designed to kill, maim, or terrify. You start to feel like a character in a twisted board game. Each move has consequences. Each breath is a decision. And every safe step feels like an insult to the jungle. One morning, you wake to the sound of birds. Real ones. They're chirping. The air is calm. The plantation is, for once, quiet. You stretch, brush your teeth with a canteen and a finger, and head to the mess tent. Someone taped a note to the door. It says, "Boom." You freeze, then peel it off. It's a joke. A dark one. From Peralta. You swear under your breath and laugh. But you also triple-check the floorboards before walking in. Because here's the thing. You're starting to like this work. Not in a morbid way. In a focused way. Like puzzle solving. Except the stakes are your limbs. And you're getting better. Faster. Smarter. You know the signs now. The weight of fall soil. The smell of fresh paint. The way wire wraps just so around a twig. You begin to think like them. And that's both a gift and a curse. Because once you start to think like the jungle, you become the jungle. And eventually, you forget what it's like to feel safe. But hey, at least you didn't step on the soap trap. That's a real thing. Bar of soap, hollowed out, packed with plastique, left in latrines. You laugh every time you see it mentioned in briefing docs. But now, you check every soap bar, just in case. By the end of the week, the plantation is clear. You radio it in. Mission complete. Base congratulates you. Command sends backup. And you keep walking, deeper into the trees. Because traps aren't just obstacles anymore. They're the only part of this war that makes sense. You don't get to enjoy victories here. Not for long. Clearing a plantation, it earned you a 3-day reprieve. But on day 4, the chopper spins back overhead, blades chopping the air like some mechanical bird of prey. And your next mission drops into your lap like a wet jungle frog. A new trail. Fresh intel. 5 villages cut off by sabotage along Route Qul 13. One of those cursed arteries that bleed from Saigon into the heart of danger. The locals call it Thunder Road. You call it Let's See Who Gets Blown Up First Boulevard. Welcome to the world of booby trap supply lines. Your team gets dropped halfway up the route. Dust spins off the ground. The heat claws at your neck. You shoulder your gear and begin to crawl. South to north, checking every culvert, bridge, and drainage ditch along the way. You're hunting for what the engineers grimly nickname orphan traps. That's code for some poor sap built this horror show, forgot where he left it, and now it's just out here, waiting for an unlucky truck to give it meaning. First up, the bridges. Military doctrine says the enemy never attacks a bridge outright. They wait. They hide the explosives in the joints or hollow sections. It's not about instant carnage. It's about timing. Let 3, 4, 10 convoys pass, lull you into trust, then boom, detonate remotely, or let the rot and sabotage do the work. So, you lie on your belly under the first bridge, face centimeters from muddy beams. You breathe slow. You trace your fingers along steel. You find it. A suspicious rivet with scratches around its base. Inside, a timed fuse, long expired. But the explosive's still there. Moldy, but real. You probably won't survive this. Plays on loop in your head like an old radio jingle. You gently, painstakingly, peel it out. Behind you, someone whispers, "You're insane." You whisper back, certifiably, Further down the road, you find tire poppers disguised as gravel, triangular metal spikes coated in jungle mud and arranged in chaotic patterns. They don't kill soldiers. They kill vehicles, stall the convoy, set up ambushes, and then they kill soldiers. Historians still argue whether the Viet Cong learned these tactics from Soviet advisors or adapted them from colonial French manuals. What's undeniable? They work. Your squad's jeep drives 100 meters behind you, crawling, tires hissing on the road like snakes. You sweep ahead, and then you spot something worse. A manhole. In the middle of a jungle road? That's not a drainage system. That's a kill room. You kneel beside it. Shine your flashlight into the darkness. It's narrow, deep, about 6 feet across. And on the interior wall, you see rows of hooks. Not just any hooks. Hooks designed to hold claymore mines. This was an ambush point, meant to explode outward. From beneath. Imagine driving over this thing at 60 kilometers per hour. Then instant firestorm. Vehicle flipped. Body shredded. Road unusable for weeks. You flag it. Call it in. Then move on. And the jungle laughs behind you. Next up is the bamboo bleeder. You find it just past a roadside shrine. A bundle of stalks leaning innocently against a log. But your instincts scream, why is the grass around it so neatly trimmed? Why are there fly corpses in a tidy circle? You test it. A gentle nudge of the bamboo. Click. Out shoots a bamboo spike sharpened to a needle point, loaded with filth and toxins. It doesn't kill you. It infects you, maims you, makes you scream for 3 days while your blood turns black. You defuse it with shaking hands, then mark the spot for EOD. Your buddy Peralta says, I'm bringing a flamethrower next time. You say, I'm bringing a therapist, and the road keeps stretching. You reach an old French outpost, now converted into a checkpoint. Sandbags, rusted barrels, old Coca-Cola signs riddled with bullet holes. The outpost commander greets you with a salute and a 6-word warning. Don't touch the monkey statue. Trapped. You blink. What? He points. There it is, a concrete monkey, mid-squat, grinning wide. Looks like a roadside joke. Except, it's hollow. You lift the tail. Inside, a grenade rig, motion-triggered. You ask, who traps a monkey? He shrugs. Viet Cong got humor, too. Quirky? Yes. Lethal? Definitely. By evening, you've logged 17 disarmed devices, all along a single mile of road. You haven't eaten all day, and your sweat-soaked uniform smells like old soup. You sit on a stump, peel open a ration can. Meatloaf and mystery mash. Bon appetit, someone mutters. And then, as the sun dips below the tree line, boom, not near you, but close enough to send birds screaming into the sky. You grab your gear and run. An APC, half a click up the trail, caught something. The front wheel is gone. The crew's shaken but alive. You help pull them out, brush off dust, make a bad joke about insurance premiums. But you also mark it. We missed one. That night, as you hunker in your tent, someone pulls out a harmonica, plays a tune that sounds suspiciously like the theme to the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it weirdly fits. Because this trail, it's all three. You've seen good engineering, bad luck, ugly wounds, and you're not done. The next morning, you inspect a footpath used by locals to avoid the main road. It's overgrown but still clear enough to show signs of recent use. Flattened brush, sandal prints, and a few scattered cigarette butts. You follow it for 20 minutes, and there it is. A box, half buried in a termite mound. Wooden. You open it carefully, expecting wires. But inside is a plastic baby doll, painted red. You turn it over. It clicks. You drop it instantly and leap back. Nothing happens. Just silence. But that box stays untouched for the rest of the day. Historians still argue whether some of these traps were made not to detonate, but to paralyze. Psychological warfare in its purest form. The not knowing is the real killer. The final trap of the week comes at a culvert. It's a tunnel under the roadbed, used for water runoff, usually dry in summer. You crawl inside on hands and knees, flashlight between your teeth, careful not to brush the ceiling. The walls are wet. The air smells of mildew and rat urine. You find wires, but no explosives. Then you see it, a small, ticking device. Homemade mercury switch. It's powered by movement. Set to arm if the angle changes even a few degrees. Probably rigged to a mortar shell. Maybe more than one. You freeze. Slide your hand behind it. Gently wedge a flat rock beneath. You hold your breath. Lift the switch a hair. Insert the rock. Let rest. The ticking stops. You crawl backward like you're being born again. Mud in your mouth. Elbows shaking. Outside. You exhale like it's your first breath in weeks. Peralta hands you a canteen. You down in one go. He says nothing. Just claps your back. Because here's the truth. Nobody cheers for what you do. No medals. No parades. Just the knowledge that trucks will roll, medics will reach the wounded, and letters from home will arrive on time. All because you didn't blink when the jungle flinched. You watched the sun sink beyond the tree line. One more mile of Thunder Road cleared. One less ghost trap waiting in the dark. And you're already planning the next move. Because in this war, safety is a rhythm. And you're the one keeping the beat. The thing about these traps, these nightmares you disarm one by one, is that they were designed to be forgotten. Not just by the people who set them, but by history itself. They're not glamorous like tanks or air raids. They don't make headlines. You won't find them framed on a war museum wall or immortalized in victory speeches. They're meant to disappear the moment they succeed. The moment someone loses a leg, or a convoy goes up in fire, or a child picks up a shiny trinket and never gets to grow old. And that's why you can't stop. Not yet. 2 days later, village outskirts. Your team is called to a dense thicket outside a hamlet that locals avoid after sundown. They say it's cursed. They say spirits move through the grass and call people by name, just before the earth swallows them whole. Your interpreter nervously confirms it. Old road there. Americans built it long ago. Now ghosts. You raise an eyebrow. Booby-trap ghosts. He nods. Very bad ghosts. You don't laugh, because you know what's out there. It's not ghosts. It's a field of dead man switches. Old, untrigger mines, Soviet Palmses, American M16A1 bounding mines, handmade punji steak pits. Devices so degraded and forgotten that even the jungle forgot where they were buried. But the ground remembers. You step carefully, each footfall like a whispered promise. One wrong move, and it's not just your life, it's your teammates. The village's children. The next patrol, you find the first mine under a banyan root. Caked in red clay. The fuse. Rotted, yes, but not dead. You disarm it with trembling fingers, sweat pouring from your brow. Then another. Then another. They stretch like a necklace of buried teeth around the village. By the time you finish, it's dusk. The interpreter bows to you. The villagers bring you sticky rice, beetle leaves, and silence. Not as thanks, but as tribute. As if they believe you've bargained with the spirits on their behalf. Maybe you have. Nightfall. Firebase Charlie. You return to base to log your report. 16 devices cleared. 8 confirmed lethal. 4 dummies. Decoys meant to mislead. 2 weren't traps at all. Just the jungle playing tricks on your nerves. You write each entry like scripture. Because tomorrow, someone else will read this log. Maybe a greenhorn. Maybe a kid who doesn't know to check the banana clumps for tripwires, or to smell the dirt for mold around a Claymore's plastic shell. Your words may save his life. Or not. Either way, it's all you can offer. You close the folder, light a cigarette, and walk the perimeter fence alone. That's when the world shifts. You hear a click behind your heel. Time freezes. You don't move. It could be a branch, a rock, a pressure plate. Your lungs freeze. Your eyes scan downward, and you see it. Not a mine. A trick. A mirror, half buried in the mud, reflecting your boot. You didn't set it off, because it wasn't real. A psychological mine, just like the others you found. The ones meant to make you doubt the earth beneath your feet. You drop to your knees, heart hammering. That's when Peralta finds you, crouched and pale. Another one. You nod. He doesn't ask what kind. He just sits down beside you and hands over a piece of chocolate from his ration pack. Eat, he says. You look like hell. You chew in silence, the bitterness grounding you back in your body. Then he mutters, One day, some museum's gonna display all this crap we're finding. You shake your head. No one's gonna want to remember it. He shrugs. Still, someone has to. The next morning, briefing tent. New map. New route. You stare at it. Fingers tracing the red lines drawn across villages, rivers, hills. But it's the black dots that hold your eye. Each dot, confirmed booby trap site. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. And those are just the known ones. You realize the scale of it. Not just the war, but the residue of war. The venom it leaves behind, years after the fighting's done. Some of these mines, they'll still be killing people long after the ceasefire is signed. Long after the politicians shake hands. Children will step on them. Farmers will trigger them with their plows. The jungle will never forget. But maybe if you do your job right, if you keep logging them, defusing them, removing them by hand, then the land might forgive. Eventually, final scene, the river trail. You walk one last patrol before your rotation ends. A narrow river path, wet clay underfoot, the vines heavy with dew and mosquitoes' song. There's a trap ahead. You feel in your bones before you see it. And there it is, the simplest kind, a pressure stick buried under leaves, connected by fish line to a bamboo whip. Primitive, effective. You kneel, disarm, bury it deep, cover it with a red rag to mark it for pickup. Then you just sit, alone, in the hush of the trees, and you breathe. You survived, this time, in the war. It rolls on, just out of frame. You light a cigarette, and for one fragile moment, you let yourself believe it might end. That someone, someday, will walk this same trail without fear. Because you were here, because you reached into the earth and pulled the teeth from its mouth. You wake before dawn, still half dreaming, heart ticking with the rhythm of an old booby trap. Click, pause, breath, maybe boom. Your cot creaks as you swing your legs over and reach for your boots. They're still caked in jungle mud, like the ghosts of yesterday's terrain have followed you back to base. The air is thick with humidity and mosquito buzz. Somewhere, a radio murmurs a Tin Pan Alley tune that doesn't belong here. But nothing here ever belongs. Today's assignment, a school, or rather, what used to be a school. Now, it's a half-collapsed shell on the edge of a burned-out village. Locals call it the place where the chalk bled. You don't ask why. You'll find out soon enough. The schoolyard. It hits you when you arrive. The silence. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that means either everything is safe or nothing is. You step over a fallen beam. It's wood blackened and charred at the edges. The jungle has already started to reclaim it. Green vines creep along the walls like slow fingers, wrapping themselves around forgotten chalkboards and busted lockers. Then you see it. The first clue, half buried under a mound of dirt. An old Soviet F-1 grenade, rigged inside a child's wooden lunchbox. The box is painted in faded red. Mickey Mouse, barely recognizable. This was meant for rescue teams, or medics, or whoever dare to show mercy after the strike. The kind of trap that punishes compassion. You disarm it slowly, breath caught in your throat. And now you know why the locals wouldn't step near. This isn't a battlefield. It's a grave with homework in the dirt. Booby trap variants in civilian spaces. This is the part they never showed in war movies. You weren't trained for this. Not really. Textbooks taught you about anti-tank mines, wire traps, buried charges. But they didn't prepare you for this. Grenades hidden in school bags. Tripwires threaded through picture frames. Handmade mines built into church pews. The trap in the school storage closet. A mortar shell stuffed inside a teddy bear. You and Peralta almost miss it. Only spot it because the stitching is newer than the dust on the floor. That kind of detail sticks with you. Long after the war ends. Long after you have kids of your own. And you can't look at their toys without flinching just a little. Phantom traps and mental weight. As the day goes on, the paranoia mounts. Every drawer, every cabinet, every tile might conceal something. Your team moves like dancers now. Not gracefully, just deliberately. One wrong step, one misread vibration, and the floor might bite back. The funny thing, not all traps are real. Some are just illusions. objects left behind in just the right way to seem like threats. A jam jar sealed with wax. A pair of shoes too neatly aligned in a doorway. A radio with the antenna snapped clean. None of them are wired, but your body reacts like they are. Your brain doesn't distinguish between the possibility of death and the certainty of it. And that wears you down. Not in the flashy, movie explosion way. More like erosion. Like a cliff slowly giving way to the sea. A human minefield. Mid-afternoon. You're halfway through the second floor of the ruined school when Peralta calls out. He's found something strange. A map. Hand-drawn. Tucked behind a cracked picture frame. In it, a local child had marked all the known traps their family had planted in the village. Little XS, with names next to them. One reads, Mom's Pot Trap. Another, Uncle's Shoes Boom. It's a diary of survival, not sabotage. You feel your stomach drop. This wasn't just warfare. It was adaptation. A family weaponizing their world to keep it from being taken. You keep the map. You'll copy it, archive it, memorize it, and then burn it. Because if it ever falls into the wrong hands, well, you've seen what wrong hands can do. Reconstruction begins. By evening, you've cleared the structure. 12 devices. 7 live. 5 dummies or decoys. One was so rusted it disintegrated in your gloves. The local elders arrive just before dusk. They light incense. Lay down paper flowers. They don't say thank you, but you feel the weight lift from the air just slightly. It's enough. A child peers out from behind a wall, clutching a piece of chalk. He watches you like you're something mythical. A bomb whisperer. You smile and hand him a clean white rock. Then you gesture to the ruined board on the wall. Write something, you whisper. Something real. Back at camp, the nightmare returns. That night, you wake from sleep clawing at your cot. You dreamed of the teddy bear again. Only this time, it had a voice. It begged you not to disarm it. And when you did, it cried. You splash water on your face. Look in the mirror. You're not even 25, but your eyes look like they belong to someone much older. Someone who's watched too many things almost explode. Or worse, things that did. Legacy. You write up the report, fingers stained with graphite and grease. You include everything. The traps, the drawings, the false alarms, the child with the chalk. At the bottom, you write a single sentence. This school can be rebuilt now. It is no longer weaponized. You pause. Consider adding more. But the truth is, no document can ever capture what almost happened there. Or what still might. So you close the folder. And you try, just for a moment, to believe in the idea of healing. Of growth from rot. Of futures that aren't rigged to blow. One last image. As you drift off to sleep that night, one picture lingers in your mind. That classroom door, newly unchained. The air inside, still but warm. And the faint sound of chalk, sketching something onto the blackboard again. Not war plans. Not warnings. Just a flower. 5 petals. Unexploded. You don't remember falling asleep, but you remember waking. The ceiling fan above you is spinning with a lazy clack, cutting through thick humidity like a tired machete. You blink hard, push off your sweat-damp blanket, and sit up slowly, joints stiff like you've aged decades overnight. Your brain is still in that schoolhouse, isn't it? Still listening for the click beneath your heel, still waiting for a teddy bear to detonate, still watching chalk dust drift through shafts of sunlight like spores in a minefield. But you're not there anymore. You're being deployed to a new region. Nui Baden. The locals call it Black Virgin Mountain. You'll call it something else soon enough. The mountain's teeth. From a distance, Nui Baden rises out of the jungle like a myth, shrouded in mist, dotted with ancient pagodas, and surrounded by stories even older than the war. It's said a princess died on this mountain. It's also said hundreds of combat engineers have died here too. The VC have transformed the entire mountain into a honeycomb of tunnels, sniper nests, cave traps, and ambush points. But your job today, it's weirder than usual. They're sending you in to clear a hidden path, a zigzag trail carved into the limestone cliffs that, according to recent intel, has been booby-trapped using both old-school and improvised spiritual defenses. That's right. Today, your enemy isn't just wire and explosives. It's also ghosts. Or at least, What the locals believe are ghosts. You sigh. Great. You mumble. Ghost bombs. Peralta laughs. They gonna haunt us with tripwire. Superstition as defense. At the trailhead, you meet your guide, a Vietnamese interpreter named Den. He's young, maybe 20, but his eyes are ancient. He carries a rifle in one hand and a bundle of incense in the other. Before you move forward, he lights the incense, bows 3 times to the jungle, and places the sticks into a mound of earth beside a termite hill. You raise an eyebrow. He doesn't explain. He doesn't need to. You're not mocking the ritual. Not anymore. You've seen enough weirdness out here to know that superstition is often just another kind of warning system. One that works. A single candle flickering near mine. A chicken's severed foot strung over a pitfall. A patch of oddly untouched jungle. Perfectly circular. Historians still argue whether these symbols were meant to ward off enemies or warn them. You treat them as both. The bamboo ladder trap. Midway up the trail, you find your first trap. A bamboo ladder, lashed with vines, leads to an outcropping overhead. It looks innocent enough, but then shakes his head furiously and points to the sides of the cliff face. You squint. There, just behind the greenery, 2 fish hooks, rigged to a taut monofilament line. If you climb the ladder and disturb the vines, even slightly, you trigger a cascade of rocks above. Hidden in those rocks, a mortar shell, likely American surplus. You test the tension with a stick. The whole system rattles like a snake. One wrong move, and the mountain sheds you like old skin. You disable it using a telescopic arm, pull the ladder away, and watch as the mechanism collapses harmlessly. But the silence afterward is not comforting. It's like the mountain is recalculating. Mist and memory. As you continue, the mist gets thicker. Not fog. This is something else. Warmer. Denser. Like the mountain is breathing. Your boots slip on moss-slick rocks. You smell iron in the air. Not blood, not quite. Just the possibility of blood. And then you hear it. A chime. Soft. Like wind hitting a glass bell. You freeze. Then freezes. Peralta, already squatting beside a nearby stone. There, tucked under a jutting root, is a canister. Japanese. World War II era. Rusted, but clearly refurbished. Fitted with a pressure switch disguised beneath a patch of moss. The chime wasn't a warning. It was a lure. You disarm it, gently. It hisses like a sigh when you remove the trigger plate. Who even thinks of this stuff? You whisper. Peralta shrugs. Some people collect stamps. Tunnel mouth. Just before dusk, you reach the mouth of a narrow tunnel carved straight into the cliff. You're not supposed to go in. That's for recon units. But something's off. The ground at the tunnel's edge has been tampered with recently. And right there, hidden beneath a layer of dry leaves, you find what looks like a bundle of sticks tied with red thread. Then gasps. He won't touch it. He says it's a warning from the mountain monks. You're skeptical, until you notice the sticks are concealing a cluster of crushed glass fragments, each wired to a chemical fuse. If someone had kicked it aside casually, it would have gone off. The superstition saved you. Again, the monkey alarm. Later that night, while camping on a mountainside, you hear rustling in the trees. You reach for your weapon, but it's not an ambush. It's monkeys. Whole tribes of them. And they're throwing things. Fruit. Sticks. Shiny objects. One even hurls a broken pocket watch. Then Den smiles. They're warning us. What? The VC train monkeys, he says. Not to attack. To alert. You blink at him. Historians still argue whether that's true, you mutter. But you keep watching them anyway. Because even if it's just coincidence, what if it's not? Booby-trapped shrine. The next morning, before dawn, you stumble across a small shrine built into a cave hollow. It's beautiful, untouched by fire or war. You feel peace here, which is probably the point. But Peralta crouches suddenly. There, he says. Look at the incense stand. The base of the offering dish is wired. You suck in air. You almost knelt to pray there. And if you had, well, it wouldn't have been peaceful for long. You dismantle the mechanism in silence. Somewhere, a bird calls once, then stops. Survivor's joke. By noon, your radio squawks. HQ is pulling you back. Too much movement in the valley below. Chopper in 20. You retrace your steps carefully, remarking every area with ribbon. Then, near the old ladder site, you see a tiny inscription carved into the rock. It's in English. It says, "If you're reading this, congrats. You made it." Peralta bursts out laughing. You do too. Maybe it's a previous unit. Maybe a ghost. Either way, it feels like solidarity. Like someone else got out. Closing image. On the flight back, you stare out at the receding mountain, its summit still hidden by mist. You don't speak. You just watch the jungle roll away, knowing full well that you'll be back in terrain like this tomorrow. New hill, new name, same teeth. But for now, you exhale slowly and let the silence settle into something like peace. The dust on your boots is still warm when the chopper touches down, but you don't get long to think about it. You're reassigned before your legs even stop shaking. New mission, new terrain, new kind of hell. This time, you're headed into the Mekong Delta. Don't get excited. It's not all riverboats and rice paddies. This is the war's swampy, shape-shifting labyrinth. The ground here moves. The traps do too. And your task is different now. You're no longer just disarming landmines. You're hunting the engineers behind them. The trap makers. The invisible enemy. You've heard whispers for weeks about the bamboo fox. He, or she, or they, no one's quite sure, was rumored to be one of the Viet Cong's most elusive sappers, designing traps so intricate even the locals tread lightly. Not just tripwires, puzzles, psychological bait, traps that required you to make moral choices. A bomb inside a collapsed hospital tent. Disarm it, or waste time and risk the rest of the unit. A grenade booby-trapped under a photo of a child. Real or fake. You're not just out in the jungle anymore. You're in someone else's mind, and they know the terrain better than you ever will. War beneath the waterline. Your boots disappear into the muck with every step. The Mekong doesn't just hide danger, it births it. Every twist of the delta is a fresh canvas for mayhem. There's a trap here called the Swimmer's Cross. You learn about it when you dive with a SEAL team to investigate a sunken sampan near a suspected arms cache. You glide under the water, breath slow, goggles fogging, and then, inches from your hand, you see it. For sharpened bamboo, spears arranged in an X, nearly invisible in the muddy current, rigged to a tripwire along the keel of the boat. Had the SEALs try to lift the hull from the wrong side? Goodbye lungs. Goodbye mission. The water hides death like a secret lover. The children's path. In one riverside village, the footpath is unusually narrow. The interpreter frowns. Only the children use it now, he says. That's suspicious. You follow it anyway, carefully, clearing each step ahead of you with a probe. Then you see why it's so narrow. Someone has buried spiked fishing hooks on both sides of the trail, just beneath the surface. The idea? To catch the ankles of anyone trying to step around the path. A cruel logic. Kids stay light and centered. Adults bleed. You kneel, disarm, shake your head. I swear, you mutter. They study our height, weight, and shoe size. Peralta taps your helmet. Bro, if I was fighting Goliath with sandals and a knife, I'd do the same. You nod. Touché. Death in the bamboo. You know the hinged log trap? Probably not, because it rarely fails. It's built in a bamboo grove, where stalks grow so densely that sight lines vanish. The VC hollow out a log, fill it with nails or glass, and lash it high between two trunks. The trap is released by a tension wire placed at chest height. You're walking. You trip the wire. Boom. The log swings toward your torso at head speed. You only see it when Peralta screams, and you duck by instinct. The log brushes your helmet, takes the bark off a tree beside you. The groove it leaves is deep enough to bury a baby. You laugh later. Hysterical, tear-streaked laughter. But not yet. False graves. Then there are the graves. So many of them. Some real, some not. You're told to respect every burial mound, even if it looks suspect. The VC know how to manipulate that reverence. At one site, your metal detector pings hard beneath what looks like a collapsed gravestone. It's suspicious. So you dig, carefully, beneath the surface. A French-made mortar shell, rusted but active, with its fuse wired to a crucifix. You disarm it. You rebury it. Then you leave an offering, your last chocolate ration, not out of superstition, just respect. The animal trap. Sometimes they don't need engineering, just animals. In one ambush zone, you find a tiger pit. Only the tiger is long gone. In its place, a hive of jungle wasps. Some genius decided to rig the lid with a spring system. Step on it wrong, and it releases the hive. You don't know what's worse, shrapnel or that nightmare. Peralta gets stung 5 times before he can scramble back. You spend the night shivering under his poncho, muttering, "Tiny knives, bro, tiny knives." You make him a tea of crushed leaves and river mint. He swears you're a wizard. You don't correct him. Ghost radio. One night, while tracking another suspected trapmaker, you hear a broadcast on your field radio. Except the frequency is dead. White noise. And underneath that, a voice. Vietnamese. Repetitive. Almost like a chant. You waked in. He listens. His eyes go wide. He says it's a ghost ritual, a way to confuse enemy soldiers at night and lure them into kill zones. You change channels. The voice follows. Now, even you're wondering. Historians still argue whether this was real psychological warfare or just freak radio, anomalies caused by the dense jungle atmosphere. You don't sleep that night. Personalized traps. Then comes the worst one. It's just before sunrise. You're clearing an abandoned VC field office. Paperwork, gear, ration wrappers. And on the floor, beside a discarded rucksack, is a pair of dog tags. American. Not just American. Your unit. Peralta picks them up. They knew we were coming. He whispers. That's when you realize. The bag isn't empty. There's a shaped charge inside. Pressure triggered. Peralta freezes. You take the tags. Step back. And very, very slowly, cut the pressure trigger and wedge a pencil under the hinge. The charge doesn't go off, but your soul almost does. You leave the tags behind. You don't want to know who they were, or who set the trap. Legacy of the bamboo fox. Eventually, intel catches up with the elusive trapmaker. Turns out Bamboo Fox wasn't one person. It was a group, mostly women, mostly teenagers. They studied U.S. patrol patterns like chest openings. They built decoys that misled minesweepers. They left false trails, mimicked our own field manuals, even inserted fake maps into recovered enemy gear. You can't help but admire it. This isn't just brutality. It's brilliance born from desperation. You wonder what they'd be in another life. Architects, professors, novelists, but wouldn't give them that choice. And neither did yours. A return path. As your mission wraps, you return to the same path where you started, along the riverbank where the children once walked. But something's changed. The path is wider now. The hooks are gone. The ground is scarred by boot prints, not just yours, but others. You walk it slowly, carefully, and when you pass the last bend, there's a single red thread tied to a tree limb. It flutters in a breeze. Not a warning this time. A goodbye. You leave Vietnam before the year ends. Not in a blaze of glory. Not in a flag-waving finale. But on a rusted C-130. Its floors sticky with rainwater and hydraulic fluid. Your gear in a duffel that smells like mildew and spent powder. Peralta sleeps beside you, his arm in a sling from a shrapnel wound that almost took his elbow. He mumbles in his sleep, "Wires, wires, wires." You don't wake him. You're watching the jungle disappear beneath the clouds. But the war doesn't stay behind. It follows you in fragments. Each trap you disarmed, a shape in your dreams. Each near miss, a phantom twitch in your hand. You carry home the faces you never saw, the hands that made those weapons, the eyes watching from under banana leaves, the minds that studied you as carefully as you studied them. The war trained you to see patterns in chaos. Now you can't unsee them. You sit on park benches, scanning the cracks in the pavement for tripwires. You flinch when the heater kicks on too suddenly. You smell jungle rot and damp laundry. You never really left the Mekong. It just changed its name. What you saved. You try to explain it once, to someone who asks what combat engineers really do. You save lives, they ask. You nod. Sure, but not in the way they think. You didn't charge a machine gun nest. You didn't shoot your way through ambushes. You didn't plant flags or win hills. You walked into death's mouth every single day and made it flinch. You studied cruelty like a language, translated it, unwrote it, taught your hands to move gently through razor blades, rusty wires, live grenades, poison stakes. You turned killing machines into scrap metal. Sometimes you saved your friends. Sometimes you didn't. Sometimes you just gave them 10 extra seconds. But in war, that's everything. The final trap. Years later, you visit a museum. There's a Vietnam War exhibit. A mannequin wears a flak vest like yours. There's a recreated tunnel system, complete with a fake punji trap under plexiglass. Children press their noses against the display. One kid asks his dad, "Why would someone build that?" The father answers, "Because they hated us." You want to correct him, not out of politics, out of precision. You want to say, "Because we were there." Because when war comes to your backyard, you use what you have. And sometimes, all you have are fish hooks, pressure plates, and human fear. But you say nothing. You just stare at the trap. Even now, you're scanning it, looking for the flaw, looking for the wire that isn't there. Because deep inside, a part of you wants to find one more. In every war, there are those who fight with guns, and those who fight with wire cutters, instincts, and trembling hands. The combat engineers didn't seek glory. They walked into death traps, so others didn't have to. They were the quiet heroes, and this was their war. If this journey moved you, if it made you think twice about the unsung courage that rarely makes the history books, then do me a small favor. Like this video, share it with someone who's never heard this side of the story, and subscribe, only if you want more of these soft-spoken truths we dig up, one forgotten tale at a time. You listening makes all the difference. Sleep well, and I'll see you in the next story. Let me know if you'd like a shorter version, or variations with stronger emotional hooks for shorts, mid-rolls, or pinned comments.